Welcome to the Underground Paradox, the UGP. I'm out again on the wilds of Dartmoor in Devon, investigating. But this time, I'm not alone. I was honoured to be invited by a team and a group of members from the Black Crow Paranormal Society, otherwise known as the BCPS. Now, this is a team of people that are made up from all different groups: scientists, skeptics, paranormal enthusiasts, paranormal investigators, mediums, and together they investigate many locations in Devon and Dartmoor, and they invited me along for what they call the Dartmoor Triple.
The lights.
There was 3 locations that we had to investigate, and the majority of the investigation was going to be taking place at night. That wasn't what was making me nervous. It was meeting multiple new people that I've never met before. But I had nothing to worry about because the guys from the Black Crow Paranormal Society made me feel so welcome. So a big thank you to Kevin, Liz, Jim, Sid and Julie. All you guys were fantastic to meet. So let's get to it. Let's enjoy this episode investigating on Dartmoor with the Black Crow Paranormal Society. We only met very briefly at the Plymouth Feathers pub, which in itself is a very old pub. It was originally built in 1785, but it was just a brief meeting point, and then we were straight on the road heading to our first location, location 1. So this is where it all begins. I'm out on Dartmoor again, but this time I'm not alone. I'm with the lovely guys from the Black Crow Paranormal Society. There's not as many people here at this event as we were expecting. The weather was really bad this afternoon, so it put a lot of people off. But actually, the rest of the evening is forecast to be pretty good. So we are meant to be out on Dartmoor tonight, I should say, until about 1 a.m. And there's a number of different locations that we're going to, but all related to ghosts, hauntings, and spiritual activity. Right now, we're on the B3212. This is an area that's synonymous with a hairy hands legend, where a lot of drivers see hairy hands or they take over the vehicle, and there's been a lot of crashes and fatalities in this location related to that. But I'm going to pass over to Kevin, who's going to do a bit of a reading from his book Haunted Plymouth, where he covered this area, and he's just going to tell the group a little bit more of the background of it. So check this out.
So the Hairy Hands is a very well-known ghost story associated with the B3212. My mother had told me the story of the Hairy Hands when I was a small boy, and from that moment I was completely fascinated with reading about Dartmoor and its ghostly hauntings and phantoms. I bought one of my first books on the subject when I was 7 years old, and I've been trying to quench my thirst for knowledge of the paranormal ever since. In many ways it's been a journey. I've now come full circle, having visited the site where the infamous Hairy Hands are said to haunt. I now tell the tale of this curious haunting to my own children. The curious case of the Haunted Hands dates back to over 100 years, as in 1910, drivers, cyclists and travellers reported a wide array of encounters with a pair of large, disembodied hairy hands. There have been numerous accidents on this particular stretch of road, and in most instances the victims have stated that their vehicles suddenly violently swerved and they lost control, ending up very shaken and drawn to a halt on the verge on the opposite side of the road. So I'd say this is just here, around where we are now. A number of fatalities on this spot have attributed to notorious hairy hands. In June 1921, a doctor called E.H. Helby, who was working for Dartmoor Prison and had travelled on this road countless times, was killed when he lost control of his motorcycle and sidecar, occupied by two young women. The women were thrown clear and survived the incident, but Dr. Helby was less fortunate. This was not to be the last incident to occur that summer, as on August the 26th, tomorrow, anniversary, a bus driver lost control of the same stretch of road, throwing a number of people off their seats. The incidents captivated the local press and a newspaper reporter was sent to investigate. A number of people believe the tragic events have been caused by the adverse camber in the road, and the local council acted to reduce it. On August 26, 1921, an army captain, it's interesting, it's August again, 26, 1921, an army captain reported a large pair of hairy hands took control of his motorcycle and forced him off the road. In 1924, a woman camping in a caravan located nearby Powder Mills, which is just over there, as you can see in the distance.
Just there, yeah.
Awoke early one dark morning to see a large, hairy hand slowly creeping up the caravan window. The female was petrified to death as she made the sign of the cross and began to pray. At this point, the disembodied hand slowly crept down the window before completely vanishing into thin air. In 1960, a fatal accident occurred on this lonely stretch of the B3212, where a car was found upturned in a ditch next to the supposed site of where the hairy hands had previously appeared. There were no witnesses to this fatality, no faults with the car, and the cause of the accident was never established. And then I wrote about my brother-in-law, who drives for a living and is very skeptical, was driving his family along the B3212 in 2012 when he had a worrying experience. For a brief moment, he absolutely had no control of the car and feared he was going to crash. However, he managed to regain control of the car and later took it to the garage to have it checked out. No fault was found. And that all occurred where we are now, on the B3212, on the adverse camber, with the legend of Harry Hands.
So what do we think it is, Kev? Where do you think? Because something of that age wouldn't necessarily know what a motor vehicle is.
Exactly.
I mean, it might recognise that you're steering the vehicle.
Yeah.
But back then, would they have had early motor cars? Not, what did you say, 1921?
1924, 21.
And that's the first kind of recorded.
That's the first recorders. Whether there's recordings further back would be interesting, if there's horse and cart or carriage or horses, riders.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a bit more research.
Yeah, whether there was anything before that time.
Because there's many legends associated with it. Because some say there was an accident, worker at Powder Mills was in an accident where his hands were blown off. That's one legend.
When was that?
I can't prove the date.
We've got a friend that worked there for years.
Okay, maybe they could. I mean, I think we're going back a while, but Powder Mills over there, if his hands were said to have been blown off, obviously gunpowder, Powder Mills, could that relate to it? Some people believe it's gone back further. Was it something to do with?
Because you think the size and the fact that it's hairy.
Hairy, so it makes you think.
Is it a creature, or
yeah,
was
that's
it
what
somebody who was just, when they died, maybe had really dirty hands rather than hairy hands?
That's the thing, isn't it? It makes you think.
Is that?
But they say large. That's what I find fascinating.
Yeah.
They always refer to a large pair of hairy hands.
So one would assume it's a man or a male
or
creature.
something.
Yeah.
At this point, the team started heading down to the exact location to begin investigating and documenting and taking pictures. What really impressed me is that the general conversation from everybody in the group was trying to look at logical reasons why there may be so many accidents happening in this location, rather than thinking immediately about the paranormal. It's important when paranormal investigating, and unfortunately we have to eliminate the explainable before we can find the unexplained. But along with the team, I also was trying to look for logical explanations and reasons why so much activity has taken place in this exact location. Just filming this section because earlier on Kevin was talking about in his opening reading there about how the road had recently been fixed by the local council to try and avoid the accidents. We're thinking that it's possibly here and that the road originally went back to where the wall is. You can see the change in the coloration in the road there, but it's also the same on the other side of the bridge. If you look further up, there's also some discoloration showing that it looks like a new road layout. But yeah, we're just looking for potential other explanations as to why a lot of drivers seem to lose control in this area outside of the legend. I wasn't quite sure what to make of this Hairy Hands legend. I mean, it's strange thinking about a body part being sort of like a ghostly entity, but I guess there are other tales where just like heads have been seen or headless bodies. So I think it was really interesting what Liz was saying about the black hands, and maybe it's not hairy, it's dirty hands, and the relationship then to the powder mill near this location where gunpowder was made. I think it was strange, the reoccurrence of a lot of these incidents taking place on the same date, August the 26th. At least a couple of them did. So lots of strange things about this case. However, there's a good chance that it's environmental, and that's on several levels. So first of all, let's just think about normal, everyday environment. The road has been changed by the council recently, so we don't know exactly what the road looked like, and it could have been a very tricky, difficult bend that was susceptible to a lot of incidents and accidents. There's a stream that runs either side of the bridge, and I don't know, it would be interesting to do a lot of tests in different lighting conditions, sunlight, cloudy conditions, nighttime, daytime, to see if there's any kind of optical illusion where the road reflects off the stream, and that could fool drivers thinking that the road is going one way when actually it's in a different position. Also, the location is at the bottom point of a very small valley, so very susceptible to things like flash flooding or just generalized flooding, which could again cause optical illusions for drivers, especially at night time. Anyway, let me know what you think in comments about this legend and about this location. But lastly, for the record, I drove home on this road on the wee hours of August the 26th at the end of this evening's event, and it's my sad duty to report that I didn't have or see any strange occurrences. But that doesn't mean that there isn't something more about this tale and this legend to be investigated. But for now, it's time to move on to the second part of location 1, Green Coombe. Okay, so we've left the B3212 location, just headed a little bit down the road, did a pit stop at the National Park Visitor Centre, a much needed toilet break, but also there's a woods near here that we're going to do some energy building. I think Kevin's going to lead that, just to set the tone for the rest of the evening. There's a lot of things that spiritual mediums need to do, like protective stuff and proper ways of closing down the session as well, so I think we're going to be doing that in a minute.
Energy build is just putting intention out there that we're inviting spirit to come forward. We're grounding ourselves, putting protection in place as well, and at the end of the night we'll do a close down as well. Thank spirit for working with us as well. Is that okay? So it's entirely up to you if you want. We literally link hands.
Right. Okay.
Okay, if anyone drive past now, this will be interesting for them. Just skip around in circles. Okay, ladies and gents, so if you want to just draw yourself into this moment, feel free if you want to open your eyes, close your eyes, whatever you feel comfortable with. It's just about being in the moment. So as we stand here now upon Dartmoor, at Green Coombe, just draw your attention to your feet and imagine there's large roots coming out your feet, going into the earth, into the ground, and straight to the centre of the earth. And as we stand in here, if you're coming close to us, please come closer and let yourself know to us as well. As we said, we're here with the utmost respect and meaning no harm. We're just curious, we'd like to make contact with you this evening. So whether it's here now or a bit further on the next locations, we remain protected, we remain grounded. For the time being, you're most welcome to make yourself known to us. It's not even like that. You think? I was quite quick on that one, but I just conscious. Is that alright? Yeah. Quite chill?
I don't know if it's the circle energy or just you, but my arm is warm.
Yeah, I'm feeling hot through that as well.
Bundle of energy.
Yeah, start.
Am I a man? Yes. Am I a woman? No. Am I a monkey?
Not sure.
No. So, but you can ask questions, yes or no questions is mainly, and then you can get dates, years, etc. So for example, point to Sid. The reason I take my hand off the back is just to show I'm not manipulating it. Point to G. Point to my car.
So you're not moving then?
No, they're moving. There you go.
So what makes that energy move to that question then? What is it?
Some people think you're doing it subconsciously, but to be honest, I've used these rods and you can really hold them tight, but I hold them very loose to just show I'm not actually manipulating it. My hand's off the back. So once again, if I said point to G, see I'm holding them really loose now. But
Yeah, they come that way, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
Okay,
yeah.
have a go, Julie. Yeah. Give it a go. So everybody's different. So your yes and no
Could
will
be different. You want to keep them about a shoulder width
So-
apart.
Shoulder width
Yeah.
apart. Right, okay.
Slightly
just-
dropping down a bit.
Right.
So
The shifts, that's it.
Right. So can you move it from my yes?
So
Direct-
show
what do
me
I
my
say?
show me my yes.
Show me
'cause
my yes direction.
It's all right, and then
Yeah.
just keep
Just
saying your
give it
head.
time.
It will go. It doesn't
Right.
happen straight away.
Show me my yes direction. Show me my no direction.
So when you ask a question, you've got to reset and then bring it back up. So say, show me my yes,
Right. Okay.
and then if I ask a different question, show me a no. Does that make sense?
Right, I
Okay.
wanted to show this to you guys on camera, and firstly, apologies for the bad camera work and me cutting off people's heads. The reason why I wanted to show you this is because the dowsing sticks don't work for Julie at all. Obviously Kevin's just had a go with them and is an expert, and they were going all over the place. After Julie had her go and had no success, I then had a go. Now sorry, because I put my camera down to hold on to the sticks, I completely forgot to film the experience, but they didn't work for me either. Then they got passed to Liz, who's also a spiritual medium, along with Kevin, and they worked really well for her as well. Now, although I'm a believer in energies, both from a scientific perspective and I guess a spiritual perspective, I've never held a lot of stock in dowsing rods. But what happened was Liz told me that I was doing it wrong and asked me to do it again. And in just a few moments, you're going to find out what happened. But before that, on the screen right now is an app that one of the team had on their phone, which was called Spirit Talker. It was placed in the sort of middle of the area that we were operating within. In this next shot, I had no light, so it was completely dark, but I picked up the audio and check out what the app was saying.
So we got Haunted Grove in the night, buzzing, stop the camera, door no, I can't.
Did you get one that said stop the camera?
Yeah, it says stop the camera. It will save
yeah,
this, I can send
photo
this
as
on the
well.
group page.
I had my first ever go at dowsing sticks, and I'm really shocked because all of these years I've believed that it's definitely people like moving the sticks, but having had a go myself and it not working at first, and then having somebody show me how to properly use them, I'm like, it was amazing. It was being really reactive, and it feels so weird when it happens. So yeah, that's a first for me and a new one, and I'm really sorry I couldn't get it on camera.
This is known as the watching place. And there's a sign over there, as you can see. And the watching place is also known as B-Tor Cross. The cross is just behind us here. It's a large cross found on the hedge line, situated on the B3212, so we're still on the same road. It said that the area was once the haunt of a highwayman called John Fowl, hence the name The Watching Place. He would wait at the cross and watch for his next victim. Another reason given for his name is that a gibbet once stood nearby on the crossroads, just over there, where executed felons would hang as a hideous warning to others contemplating a life of crime. So as Liz picked up as well, very relevant indeed.
Was a gallows tree?
So a gallows tree is where they would hang people for their crimes. So
Right.
they would either put the whole body in a cage and hang it from a tree.
A gibbet,
So it would
yeah.
stop people from committing crimes, because that was the punishment.
Yeah.
So it was a warning they sent out.
Yeah.
But they did all sorts of things. Just the head hung sometimes from trees.
What was his name? John Fowl, F-A-L-L. Well, I can also tell you there was a battle here, hence why you have the cross that was fought between the Picts and the Celts. And that took place upon this area, this land as well. Historically, when we've been here previously, we've heard the sound of metal being hit over by the actual sign. We've had quite a bit of activity over there as well. And what else have we had here? Sometimes you get pungent smells. Obviously, if there's a gibbet, that house was a corpse that was rotted. It kind of makes sense. There's also a rumour that they would lay out food here for the plague victims, and then they would check it regularly to see if they were collecting the food, and once the food was still not being collected, they then presumed that the family had passed. Would that make sense? There's another reason why possibly it's known as the watching place. So there's a few reasons, few legends behind it, but the main one is the fact it was supposed to be a haunt for John Fowl, who was a highwayman. Come close to any of us here, maybe you could gently tug on our clothing, touch us on the top of the head with respect, obviously. Either way, just make yourself known. If you can bang on the metal sign, or just give a sign of your presence in any form, whether it's a light, a smell, a noise. Could you please do so now? You getting anything, Liz? I'm getting keep saying the same words over and over again. I'll keep going. You get anything?
Just feel sick.
Do you?
Yeah, I just really feel sick in the pit of my tummy.
I just keep getting, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'm not sure if this is the gentleman, but I just keep getting that.
Been here a long time, John.
I've got the chills now. You get it as well?
Freezing.
Yeah.
Thank you, John, for speaking to us.
It's getting darker. Has anybody noticed that dark pot then? And he's draining our energy. So if anybody's feeling wobbly, do step back, because he's draining our energy, this chap.
Head to toe, that is.
Was it you just now who made me feel I was being pushed?
Is this what you do to people? Do you intimidate them, John? Do you wait for them? Have you been waiting here a long time?
So it's almost like on his terms.
Come on, John.
Yeah, the camera's on now. Very mischievous.
Yeah. Interesting to see that. I've
Literally,
Yeah.
every time it's gone off is
Yeah.
when my camera's been off. Every time I stick it on, no activity.
It's too far.
So why are you still here? can feel you and we can see you with the lights. How old were you, John? Can you flash how old you were? Were you 20?
Susan said his age. I've got the number 23 coming.
21? 22? Were you 23 when you died?
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Look, he's gone wild. I've never seen it do that.
Can you stop, please? Thank you. What did you die of, John? Were you shot? Were you shot?
I think he was hung.
Were
Were you hung?
hanged? Did they hang you here?
Ooh,
Did you
chills.
die of disease? Do you know that this is your spirit that's here? Anybody want to ask anything else?
I'll stop recording now. You're getting all this, G, yeah?
Yeah,
It's been fascinating, isn't it?
finally.
Are you glad that we're here tonight? Or would you like us to leave?
It's almost like he enjoys the attention, because as soon as we turn our back, that'll probably go off.
Yeah.
But it's that interaction, especially with yourself, Liz, he's very much so interacting. And it's good that he confirmed age as well. That was interesting, because he said to me, in my mind I was getting 23,
Yeah.
and he validated it as well, didn't he?
Every good investigation, if you so wish, can start with a hypothesis. But what is required is the investigation, which creates the results. And from those results, it's absolutely essential that we then draw our conclusions. For my conclusions of location 2, please watch until the end of this video. So we're at our last location for this investigation, which is called Kitty J's grave, which really is a grave just in the middle of nowhere. And even though it's in the middle of nowhere, as we've kind of driven up and got ourselves stationary around the grave and set up to start doing some calling out, etc., we've been joined by well, first of all, it was a couple that drove by, and they've come to see the grave in the middle of the night as well. And then there's 3 other people that have joined that have nothing to do with the other 2, so it's like quite a full-on affair. And we're just sort of kind of waiting until it quiets down a little bit, but it just goes to show you how popular this site is and how well known it is. It's come to that sad time to report that these visitors just did not leave. We waited patiently around about an hour to see if they would leave naturally, because they had every right to be there, as we do. You know, this is a public area, it's a legend that is very well known, and so they've got every right to be there, as we did. But while they remained, it was unwise for us to continue our investigation for a number of reasons. They hadn't been part of the earlier protection and energy circle. They're strangers to us, so we don't know if they had had a drink or any other substances, which would be very unwise to put people into these kind of situations if they're intoxicated. So there was a lot of reasons why we couldn't continue the investigation, and also it was very difficult for me to film because I didn't have the permission of these people to film them under these kind of conditions. But on a much more positive note, it means that I will be returning to Kitty J's grave to do another investigation. So I will be sharing that with you guys in the future, and I may go back with a smaller group or even by myself. Who knows? But watch out for that. Now, in the meantime, if you want to find out more about Kitty J's grave and the legend behind that, or any of the locations that we've visited on the Dartmoor Triple, this is the perfect opportunity before I share my conclusions to do a little bit of a plug for Kevin, who is the organizer of this event for the Black Crow Paranormal Society. And along with being a spiritual medium and a paranormal investigator, Kevin has turned that into becoming an author, and all the inserts that he's been reading to us throughout this evening come from his book Haunted Dartmoor, which is available on Amazon and all good stockists, along with his other book Haunted Plymouth. Lastly, just before my conclusions, I just want to say one last big thank you to the team and the guys from the BCPS. You made me feel so welcome, and thank you for putting up with me, because what you guys at home have got to understand is that this team of people don't usually have a camera going out with them when they're investigating. They don't do this for presentation purpose, they do it for the enjoyment of the investigating. So I was very grateful for their patience with me switching lights and cameras on every 30 seconds. So thank you guys. But it was a great experience for me too, because it was a completely different dynamic going out with a group of people and investigating, both from the experience point of view and secondly from a filming point of view, and hence why I probably didn't get as much footage as I usually do, because one, I didn't want to be too intrusive, and two, you know, when you're in a big group of people and people are splitting up, you just don't know where to go and you're trying to set things up and action happens before you can get the shot. So yeah, it was a great learning curve for me and a great experience. So thank you guys. When I first imagined the Underground Paradox, I didn't have it set in my head that I would be sharing so much content around paranormal, supernatural, spiritual content, because my overall knowledge and expertise really lies in the paranormal areas of like ufology, cryptozoology, unexplained and mysterious archaeology, and ancient advanced civilization. So I don't know a great deal about the sort of supernatural, spiritual side of the paranormal. It's also fair to say that I'm open-minded with all areas of the paranormal. However, it would be fair to say that I'm a little bit more skeptical of the supernatural, spiritual, paranormal side, probably down to a lack of knowledge. So a lot of what you're seeing, especially in these recent episodes, is me experiencing things for the first time, like the dowsing rods. I'd never interacted with dowsing rods before, so hopefully that's fun for you guys seeing my reaction for the very first time. But because I am an investigator, I've got to say things as I see them, or else I won't be doing justice to the process. I've already discussed my conclusions from the first location, which was the B3212 and the Hairy Hands legend. So I've only really got to discuss Green Coombe at the watching place, what time we spent at Kitty J's. Before the events of this evening, I was lucky to have a spiritual reading from Kevin. I've mentioned several times throughout this video that he is a spiritual medium, and there's links to his Facebook page. I love what Kevin does and how he does it. He really concentrates on the light and not the dark side, makes it very peaceful, and creates a really great energy. And it was a really, really enjoyable reading. But here on this evening at Green Coombe, I mentioned that Liz was also in attendance, who's also a paranormal medium. At the time when we were at Green Coombe, I had probably at this point only swapped a couple of words with Liz. At this location, all of a sudden she approached me and immediately started giving me an impromptu spiritual reading, and I was super shocked at how precise her information that she was crossing over to me was. I can't go to the lengths of sharing that personal experience here, it would take too long for me to explain it, but it was so precise, and it's information that, even though I am a YouTuber and I share a lot of information about myself publicly, it's not anything that could have been picked up through that or anybody else in the group that I've spoken to previously. It was a very, very personal situation. Yes, there is obviously the chance that within any of these situations that it could be just random luck, but it was a bit spooky and a bit freaky just how on the money Liz was. Throughout the evening, both Kevin and Liz were getting some really strong hits, and some of that is captured on camera, which is great. But that situation at Green Coombe with Liz just really kind of caught me off guard and really surprised me and left my head scratching. Again, since the evening of these events, I've already been out investigating again with Kevin, and I have subtly mentioned to him that I'm not a fan of apps and using them on investigations like this Spirit Talker app. I've got to be honest, because I know the technology that exists in a lot of smart devices like mobile phones, and they have intuitive software that can build algorithms and listen to you even when you're not online. So I don't wholly trust them. I prefer the equipment that's more rudimentary in design and hasn't got inbuilt software like the EMF reader or the REM pod, or now the dowsing rods. If you've not been familiar with dowsing rods up to now, they've been around for centuries and they've been used for many different aspects of life. They come, a lot of Aboriginal cultures use them, and they used to be used to find things like water. They're used a lot in geology, so people will use them to find like energy or ley lines or predict earthquakes. And obviously people from the paranormal community have been using them for a very long time. I don't know why I was so skeptical of these things before, but having experienced them firsthand and been shown how to do it properly, I gotta be honest, after they started working for me, unconsciously I quite quickly gave them back because I was worried that somebody was going to ask me to start talking out to a spirit, and the fact that they were working, I guess, gave me a little bit of a pause that maybe I might start talking to somebody and it would all be a little bit too weird. So I guess it was, there was a lot of stuff that happened at Green Coombe that just kind of unsettled me a little bit, but a lot of it in a very positive way. Next to discuss is the Watching Place, or B-Tor Cross. There was a lot of activity here. It was a very frustrating experience for me because every time the camera was on, and I've got lots of footage where I was filming and there was just no activity. I'm going to play some of that now in the background, just to prove to you that that was the case. But every time I switched the camera off is when all the activity started to happen. Very frustrating. Now, I've described the spirit here, or whatever activity we were getting, as angry, and the reason for that is, and what you didn't see on camera, much earlier than the footage that you saw, Liz and Kevin were talking out to this supposed spirit, and the reaction on the REM pod was thus far, and it was questions like, were you murdered here? No. Did you murder somebody? Yes. Did you murder more than one person? Yes. Do you enjoy murdering people? Yes. Do you want us here? No. Do you want to cause us harm? Yes. So if we're to believe what the REM pod was reacting to, and it was giving reactions to each of those questions, we were dealing with a very dark and angry spirit. But looking at that REM pod activity from another perspective, there were long periods of time where questions were being asked and there was no activity. Or there were periods of time where no questions were being asked but the REM pod was activating. And I certainly tried to use that in some of the footage that I've shared with you guys. But I can't deny there was a lot of times where that activity was very perfectly timed in response to the questions being asked. Now, in the audio, you can hear a lot of people talking about the oppressive environmental feeling that was at this location. I think Liz mentioned that she felt sick to the stomach. Now, again, because I'm not used to going out with large groups like this, I'm not used to doing paranormal investigation, I didn't know what to say, what not to say, what to admit to. But when we arrived at this location, I was feeling very sick to the stomach. And once Liz had admitted to it, I didn't want to then say it because I didn't want to seem like I was just part of some sort of mass hysteria of feeling sick. But I genuinely felt quite unwell on this location. A couple of people mentioned comments about about how it seemed to get darker all of a sudden. Again, that could be due to environmental issues that we weren't aware of, like streetlights further down the road could have gone off, created that feeling of it going darker. However, I've again got to agree that the environment here, and it's very few times that I feel stuff like this, but even though this was just in the middle of a road, it felt like in a very impressive area. The only thing I must note in this area is that throughout a lot of our time there, Liz and Kevin, and in their calling out, were supposedly talking to the spirit John 4, the highwayman that Kevin mentioned from his book. However, in the investigation, it was never determined that we were talking to John 4. When questions like those were asked, there was no activity. So I think we could have possibly been speaking to a random spirit, not John 4, and that's my conclusion on that. The watching place by far for me was the most interesting and probably active location that we went to on this evening. As you know, our last location 3 Kitty J's, we weren't able to get into the full effect of the investigation because of visitors, so that was a real big shame. But as I've already mentioned, I'm gonna go back again and return, and you guys will get to see that. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this investigation as much as I enjoyed participating in it. I mentioned earlier that since this evening's events, I have been out again investigating on Devon with Kevin and one other member of the Black Crow Paranormal Society, and that was Sid, and we went to the Holy Trinity Church and Graveyard in Buckfastleigh in Devon. I will be sharing some footage of that in the future, maybe not here on YouTube. For those of you that don't know and haven't picked up already, links are in the description. You can join us on Facebook and on Instagram, and if you join us there, you'll get access to unedited raw footage that I don't share on YouTube, as well as bloopers and loads of extras. So I may be sharing it on Instagram as short pieces of footage from that investigation, but make sure you check those out. Again, thank you for watching this video and thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you guys very soon for more unexplained thought-provoking activity. Look after yourself, and remember, always look behind you, but always keep your eyes in front.